right. Thanks, Tom. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. All right. Well, today I'm going to share on the power of God's limitless supply. The power of God's limitless supply. And on my way to a job yesterday, I saw a herd of cattle in the distance whose markings seemed oddly familiar. And it stirred something in me, like a remembrance. And as I drove closer, I saw that many of them sported incredibly large horns. And they were Texas Longhorns in Black Forest. And I got out of my truck and I walked up to the fence and I snapped a few pictures with my iPhone, which I'll post on the web here. And I was raised mostly in Texas and have heard the story behind these Longhorn cattle my entire life. And it reminded me of a record that we're going to cover today. Like Tom said, Jesus is teaching his 12 disciples how to carry out their first assignment when Jesus sent out the 12. And he knows that they will get attacked, so he teaches them how to act. And an old cowboy saying, you can't tell how good a man or a watermelon is until they get thumped. You know, Jesus knew they were going to get thumped on this trip, but they're also going to show their goodness and their beauty. And God sees, God supplies, but it takes people with cowboy grit to round up and share God's wealth and to live with power. You know, this section was first taught to the 12 apostles just before Jesus sent them on their first spiritual test drive. And they just had received and were being taught how to operate that Spirit of God. And this teaching really is a lead up to what we're going to do Wednesday, just so you know. And it was a one-chapter training manual on how to walk with enough power to help people in ways no one else had been doing for decades. It shows us how to meet the needs that usually go unseen and how to lay our lives on the line knowing full well that God has our back and that God has all the time in the world to help us do what he's called us to do. The call. Go to Matthew chapter 10. And we're going to read this entire chapter. And in verse 1 it says, and when he had called them, this is Matthew 10, verse 1, and when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits, to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Okay? Now Jesus Christ had been operating this. Now he was teaching them how to utilize the power they have. Like I said, this is a one-chapter training manual. These are you're going to see the obstacles and the benefits to walking with power. See, Jesus first rounded up his posse and then trained them to round up others with similar hearts. And today, you too are in Jesus Christ's inner circle of followers. You too sit around his campfire. You each heard the call of the West, figuratively speaking. We each have answered the call of God. There was once a cowboy named Edward C. Abbott, later called Teddy Blue Abbott. And he was born in Cranwich, England. And he was brought to the Southwest by his parents when he was just a boy. And they hoped that the clean and open air of the West would improve his poor health. And his father actually let him help drive a herd of cattle from Texas to Nebraska when he was just 10 years old. That's a dangerous 3-month trip for a 10-year-old. And Abbott said that experience that he had at 10 years old, quote, made a cowboy out of me. Nothing could have changed me after that, end of quote. He believed he was called to be, was meant to be, a cowboy. And what call is so attractive to us that it will cause us to leave the lonely comfort of a self-centered life and to help somebody else? You know, what is our calling? What is your calling? What is my calling? We all know we've been called, but so many of us have no idea what that calling is. At least Teddy Blue knew. And today we're going to see God's limitless supply and the power to share it. And I'm going to use a post-Civil War example of how God had prepared for and saved our war-torn and war-weary nation at exactly the right time. And the American cowboy and the legend of the Texas Longhorn were born at this time. So distinctive is the mental image of a cowboy that if you ask anyone in the world to describe one, you know, what they're going to do is they're going to typically bring to mind a man wearing this big brimmed hat, cowboy boots, riding a horse on a saddle, a lariat strapped on, a trusty six-shooter in a leather holster. Wouldn't you say that would pretty much describe a cowboy? But cowboys have been around for thousands of years. Thousands of years. There were Roman cowboys. There were Spanish cowboys in Spain. But you never hear about them. There was cowboys in Florida. Who knew? There's cowboys all around the world. But when people think of a cowboy, they think of the Texas cowboy that just spanned a 20-year gap right after the Civil War. See, the image of a cowboy has taken on almost a mythical status. It permeates our movies, our books, our clothing, our music, our art, and imaginations. I go into so many houses that are decorated with statues and all this Western paraphernalia because of that 20-year span that changed America. See, the wild thing about the cowboys is that people had been, they've been herding livestock for years, like I said. But nobody really talks about them because they were just making a living. They weren't making an impact. Whereas we want to do more than just make a living, we want to make an impact. So why did the American cowboy make such a global impression? And it's still talked about today, still watched today. And I believe the reason the Texas Longhorn and the American cowboy made such a global impression is because his fame is inseparably linked to God's supply. So is ours. Choose your crew. The herd of 2,000 to 3,000 Longhorns took a crew of 12 to 15 cowboys, which is about the size of Jesus' 12 apostles. And the cattle didn't walk in a tight clump like you see in the movies. They would stretch out over miles and miles and miles. And the team consisted of a trail boss, a cook, a young wrangler who cared for the many horses. The best cowboys were called pointers. They rode at the front. And the next in line were the flank. They rode sort of at the side, and the swing also rode at the side. And lastly, the most inexperienced or lazy cowboys rode behind the herd in the dusty drag position. So that's part of where we get the term. It's a drag. Imagine walking behind 3,000 cattle when the wind's coming from the north. Oh, man. Jesus handpicked his crew. See, some of them turned out great. Some turned out bad, Judas. And some are not talked about at all, even in the Gospels or the epistles. It's just how it goes. See, choose your crew well. Verse 2. Now the names of the apostles are these. And then he talks about the first, Simon, who's called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, and James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother. We know that those four were fishing partners. They all worked on one or two boats. Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas. Remember Thomas, doubting Thomas? Yeah. And Matthew the publican. Interesting study there. You know, and James the son of Alphaeus, and Labius, whose surname was Thaddeus, and Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. See, we each choose to ride with the crew we believe we were called to serve with. You've been chosen. Choose your crew. See, we are each free-ranging Christians. Like I said before, we're freelance ministers. You got to find your crew. You might have multiple crews that make up your pack, so to speak. They don't have to go to your church, your fellowship, your home, your studio. We're bigger than that, folks. We're global ministers. Job description. Verse 5. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not. Don't go there. See, the Samaritans were a nasty lot of people. They mixed Judaism with pagan religions. They were as comfortable with the Romans, who were Gentiles living in their towns, as they were the Judeans. But they were accepted by neither. Nobody liked them. Simon the sorcerer ran the towns at that time. Remember Simon the sorcerer? Yeah. See, towns in that region of Israel called Samaria were similar to the towns that sprung up in the west to support the new railroad, the cowboy, and the longhorn. See, towns like Dodge City, Abilene, or Ellsworth, Kansas, they were all infamous. And it's been said that Ellsworth was the wickedest of the Wild West cities. Wow. You know, it was a scene of numerous killings, followed by the shootouts between the drunken cowboys. And the town sported multiple saloons, brothels, gambling halls. Prostitution was rampant. Of course, after a guy's been riding a trail for 3 months, hey, you know, even Wild Bill Hickok ran for the sheriff of Ellsworth in 1868, but lost to another man. The lawman Wyatt Earp served in that position in Ellsworth for a short time. These are all these names of these people that they were real people. Bat Masterson, Wyatt Earp worked together. You see, I mean, it's wild stuff, these guys. Doc Holliday was one of these people. These were guys who were shooters, who they hired these experienced gunmen to control these cowboys. See, it's our job to put on our badge and go where God wants us to go. You know, spend your time with people who want what you have. Keep the peace. Verse 6, but go rather, here's where to go, to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You don't need to go to Ellsworth. They don't want you there anyway. Go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. People who are looking for a home. They're looking for their herd. They're looking for their flock. But they need a shepherd. They need a sheriff. But as you go, preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick. Cleanse the lepers. Raise the dead. Cast out devils. Now imagine being told to do that. I mean, that's quite a charge. You don't even want to touch a leper. You don't even, people get uncomfortable looking around people who are a little deformed when they walk through Walmart. Usually there's many. No, I shouldn't say that. But I mean, it's what? Raise the dead. That's what Jesus is telling these guys to do. These are the 12. They're sitting around a campfire, whatever, eating their little tin of beans with their little coffee cup with the ground sort of in there, and they're waiting for them to sink to the bottom. You see, and they're sitting around, and he's going, okay, now don't go to the Samaria, don't go to the Gentiles, don't hang out with the Romans, go to the lost sheep, find people who are hungry, find people who are looking for a home, looking for a tribe, looking for a flock. How will we know? Oh, you'll know as you start talking. We'll get to that in a minute. And say the kingdom of heaven's at hand. And then with these people, heal them, cleanse them, raise them from the dead, cast out devils. Freely ye have received, freely give. Provide neither gold, nor silver, nor brass in your purses, nor script for your journey, neither 2 coats, neither shoes, nor yet staves, for the workman is worthy of his meat. Now, this is particularly for them. He's not telling us to walk around with no money. But this was their assignment. This was their challenge. And they had to do this if they're going to learn how to operate that Spirit of God. If we keep doing things the same way over and over and over, we're never going to see change. We're never going to see growth. You got to push a little more, push a little harder. Train for the marathon of life. Jesus told the 12 where to go, what to say, and what to bring. He told them to utilize their incredible abilities, their incredible spiritual abilities. And he told them it would be hard work, but the benefits to themselves and to others was going to be amazing. Because the workman's worthy of his meat. He's worthy of being paid. You will be paid. If God owns the universe, which he does, and he asks us to do a job for him, you think he's going to pay us? But if we don't believe that he is, will we ever receive it? No. You ever found a paycheck that you forgot to cash? You ever know anybody do that? I mean, it's weird. It's like, oh my gosh. Like I found a check that I'd left in my planner for a few weeks. Somebody had paid me. It's like, oh my God. It was like only $200-300, something like that. But it's like, I didn't even miss it. I didn't know, but it was like, whoa, woohoo. You put it in the bank. It's fun. I mean, God, the workman's worthy of his meat, of his hire. See, even though the Longhorns were free for the taking, they were owned by no man. It took a lot of work to get them to the market to get paid. Like I shared the other day, there's always an expected energy expenditure to have our need met. It took these guys 90 days to bring in the cattle to the railheads in Kansas or Nebraska. It's a lot of hard work. It's going to be a lot of hard work for us to meet our own need. You don't just pray and it magically, checks start falling from the sky. It's hard work. An average cowboy only made about $40 a month. Now, 40 then is different than 40 now. That may be like $400 a month now, which still isn't very good. Maybe it's more than that. I don't know what the $18.60, $8 are worth. I should have looked it up. And they wore the same pair of clothes for 3 months, like I did as a child. They used to force me to go to Sunday school when I was a kid. And I'd wear my play clothes underneath my Sunday clothes. So as I was coming home, I was stripping the little suit off, and I had my everything underneath there so I could play. And I'd throw the clothes down and just stay outside and play. You see, but they wore the same pair of clothes for 3 months. They slept outside. They ate outside. Rain or shine. They were in the saddle most of the day. Rain or shine. Now, it was usually in the summer, so it probably got hailed on. You know, I read some accounts of this because the longhorns, their horns are so big. Sometimes they can reach 7 to 9 feet span. The ones I saw yesterday, they were about 6 feet. I mean, they were huge, and they'd be running close together at times, and they said sometimes when the lightning would hit, their horns, they could tell because the horns would just all start rattling. You could tell by the rattle of the horns, you know, what was going on with the weather. So, I mean, it's just crazy stuff. You know, so they're in the saddle. They had to go out about 2 hours every night, too. And these guys would sing. One cowboy would stay on one side of the herd, another on the other side of the herd. One would sing a verse of a song, and the other one would sing another verse of the song. So the guys who like to sing together would like to go on the night watch or whatever, and they enjoyed the singing. A lot of our songs came from that. So it's interesting. Who do you want to sing with? Who do you enjoy singing with? Who do you enjoy being with? I don't mean literally a song. Who do you enjoy talking to? Those are the people we should talk to. See, for the time those men rode, they wouldn't trade it for the world. You see, put in the hard work that it takes to help the people you were called to help. We'll never regret it. We will never regret it. Is it worthy of our energy? Verse 11. And into whatsoever town ye shall enter, inquire in it is worthy. Find out who's worthy in there. And there abide till ye go hence. And when ye come into an house, salute it. And if the house be worthy, let your peace come upon it. Let your peace come upon it. And peace is part of the fruit of the Spirit. Let your power reside in that house. But if it be not worthy, let your peace return to you. Don't even waste your time. You ever try to force yourself into a crowd, especially high school? You want to be with people that don't want to be with you. It's miserable. You see it all the time. Those are usually the people who get bullied. You see, if the house be worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it be not worthy, let your peace return. Verse 14, and whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, when ye depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, which made Samaria look like Candyland or Lollipop Land, you know, in the day of judgment than for that city. People who will receive you with the power and the Spirit of God and the love of God, it's going to be better for Sodom and Gomorrah than for that city. Pretty graphic example to the people of Israel. The cities of eastern Kansas eventually made laws that forbade the Longhorns and the Cowboys from entering their towns. They didn't want the hassle anymore. Also, there was a tick that was on the Longhorns they were immune to, but it got onto the other cattle, and it made the other cattle sick. They call it Texas fever. And so they didn't want the Longhorns coming through their towns. So they kept having to move further and further west. So they would move the rail further and further west to keep up with these Longhorns. Judge Roy Bean said, don't interfere with something that ain't bothering you. Or really, it's don't interfere with something that ain't bothering you none. Judge Roy Bean. You know, in other words, if they don't want you there, don't bother them. It wasn't worth it. So the cowboys kept moving further and further west in Kansas and causing trouble as they went. Here's some Western wisdom. There are three kinds of men. The ones that learn by reading, the few who learn by observation, and the rest of them have to pee on the electric fence. You get the point. I think I'm the latter of that. And we all have to take a little shock now and again, but get involved in life. See, the lesson here is to put your energy into people who want what you have to offer. Don't force yourself on people who don't want your help. Live where you're wanted. Now, Jesus is teaching these guys this so they can go out and walk with power. And if people don't want it, will you operate? No. Spiritual power usually takes mutual believing. Not just you forcing the power on whomever. It takes mutual believing. Remember when Jesus was before some of these critics at the very end when they were beating him? Sometimes he wouldn't say anything. Why waste his words? Live where you're wanted. Put your energy into those who want you and forget about the rest. Brush it off. It ain't worth it. If you hear yourself keep bringing up times of old hurt, figure out how to get over it. Maybe you need to talk about it, but talking about it every day doesn't do anybody any good. Talk about it, get over it, brush it off. That's what Jesus was saying. What he's really telling them is, you're going to get attacked. You're going to get attacked when you really speak the word. When you really walk with power. Remember, those who live godly in Christ Jesus shall what? Suffer persecution. It's going to happen. Doesn't mean you can't get out of it. Shake off the negatives while you focus on the positives. That's a great way to live. I had a little kid, I don't know if I shared this, but I was in a home and he was asking me, do you like carpet cleaning? I said, yeah. Do you like this? Yeah. What do you like better? Upholstery or carpet? I don't care. So I like them both. And he has, for about 30 minutes, he just asked me question after question after question after question. And then he stopped and he walked around right in front of me and he looked me in the eyes. He's a little blonde 10-year-old kid, cute kid. And he said, how come every time I ask you a question, you answer in the positive? And I said, that's how I've trained myself. And I said, it's pretty good that you even noticed that. Yeah. But he was expecting me to say, oh, I'm tired, or, I hate it. Probably what his family might do, or people he's around. But train yourself to keep it in the positive. Why hang on? If you don't like your job, get another job. Right? So here we go. Walk by the Spirit, verse 16. We'll hit this a lot harder on Wednesday. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Again, that's quite a claim. Be smart, be wary. I was running down the trail the other day, and there was a little tiny snake about this long on the trail. Just a tiny little thing, and usually they don't move this time of year. They're just getting out there to warm up on a warmer day. And this thing I started running past, and it started shooting out towards me, and then it started moving its head like this. It was getting aggressive towards me. So I just jumped over it and kept running. It was really too small to do anything. It wasn't a rattlesnake, so it wasn't going to hurt. But it was weird. I'd never had one aggressively go after me before. You see, be wise as a serpent. It was aware that I was there, but harmless as the dove. Send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Now that's not, just think about that. A sheep, a herded animal that is fed, typically, or led to feed around wild wolves. That's a weird they all knew what this was like. There was wolves. There was predators, predatory animals that lived outside the walls of every city. Yeah, he said, this is how I'm sending you. Be wise as a serpent, so you better be aware. You better be aware because they're wolves. But beware of men. This is even worse. Sometimes the worst animal you'll ever face is other people. And I was reading something in Cowboy Wisdom. Sometimes the worst enemy you'll ever face is the one that you see the reflection of when you shave in the mirror. You know, sometimes we become our own worst enemies. It says, for they will deliver you up to the councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues. Remember synagogues? The small groups is not the big temple. There was, remember, 490 or 480 synagogues in Jerusalem? They were in Galilee too, where Jesus spent much of his time. People would have chosen a synagogue where it was like-minded people. It's possible Jesus rubbed shoulders with these 12 before he called them. Very possible, because they were word-speaking, word-thinking guys. And he would have gone to the synagogue that had the best teacher and the best people. Would he not? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't say, but it's possible. And ye shall be brought before the governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. You're taking a stand. And when they deliver you up, didn't say if. Take no thought how or what ye shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour that what ye shall speak. For it is not ye that speak, but the Spirit of the Father which speaketh in you. Isn't that wild? You're going to know what to say, folks. There's not a situation that'll arise in your life where you don't have an answer. It's always there, or it's always close by. Maybe somebody in your herd will help. Here's an Old West proverb. We should be as careful as naked men climbing a barbed wire fence. Quite a mind picture. But Jesus said the same thing. Wise as serpents, harmless as doves. You know, we're each designed to walk by the Spirit. This is our greatest advantage as humans. Yet so few Christians understand it. They fall into it again every now and again. We want to get to where we learn how to utilize that, learn how to stay on the horse. Jesus was teaching his 12 to be aware, to be alert, to be ready for the attack from well-meaning people. You think these governors and kings and religious men, and you think they thought they were right? Sure they do. Sure they do. I had a guy who hated me so much that when I was speaking the word to him one time, another Christian, he tried to shove me into this huge milling machine that was hogging out, had a bit about this big around, spins this way. It was just hogging out this metal. And he took me and he shoved me right into that. And it would have tore me to pieces. And I caught myself on the structure of the machine, and the boss saw him do that and fired him on the spot. But he didn't like the style of Christianity that I spoke. It had to be his way or no way. See, when we do get attacked, we're going to know how to act. And we're going to know what to say because of that Spirit of God. That's the whole point of True North Studio. It's the whole point of Wednesday nights, is to get to the point where we can consistently walk with power. Jesus Christ is instructing these guys. This is a one chapter manual on how to walk by the Spirit. These are things we're all going to face. None of us want to. None of us want this. Nobody wants to be attacked and defamed and and have to stand against family at times. I was speaking the word to my grandma one time, whose dad was a preacher back in the olden days, horse and buggy days. And she told me, Mark, take what Jesus said and fling it. She hated Jesus Christ. And she was a Christian. She was one, she didn't think she was. But she was raised that way, so she more than likely was. I'll get to see her smiling face after the gathering. I just hope she's not as mean. My little nieces and nephews, when she was in the room, they would walk the perimeter of the room to avoid her. It's wild. Endure the attacks of friends and family. Verse 21. And the brother shall deliver up the brother unto death, and the father the child. Now he's telling this to these 12. Remember the context. And the brother shall deliver up the brother to what? To death. And the father the child. What father would do that? People who don't like what you say. And the children shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. Now, this wasn't all going to happen in the week or so these guys were out. But he's preparing them for what they're about to see. What they're getting started. The first cowboys that drove those herds, they had no idea what the effect it was going to have on the world. They were just trying to make $40. They were trying to make $120. That's about what they earned on that cattle drive. $120 for 3 months' work. You laugh about that, but my wife made less than that one summer when she was in college of work she was 15 at a camp. They paid her less than that for 90 days. So, and that's in this almost this day and time. Earth was still cooling, but I better shut up. And and ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. So is everybody going to love you because you love Jesus?
No.
Not even Christians. But he that endureth to the end shall be saved. You're going to find your wholeness. You're going to find yourself. You're going to find your center. But when they persecute you in this city, flee into another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. See, the people who are the closest to us are the ones who usually hurt us the most. It's just the way it is. He's warning them of this. These guys that had all left their families and their jobs, some of them had, Peter, we even had a wife, maybe children up in Galilee. Now he's hanging out with Jesus. He's going to hang out with him for a whole year. What would the families think? What did they think when you went on a missionary program, or when you moved all over the land, for the sake of the word? I mean, it's pretty crazy. But Jesus is warning them. But when they flee to another, I already said that. Even though Teddy Blue Abbott's family introduced him to the cowboy lifestyle, they later tried to talk him out of it. They didn't like what it had made him. They wanted him to be a farmer like they were, and he refused. One time that his dad asked him to plow the back 40, and he just hopped on his horse and rode away and never went back. He didn't want to be a farmer. Jesus Christ's family introduced him to his calling as the Christ. Yet, they also once tried to talk him out of being the Christ. Isn't that amazing? People who'd received the kind of revelation that Mary did, the brothers who'd seen all this stuff that Jesus Christ had gone through and what kind of man he was, and they didn't. And then when he received that Spirit of God, came back to Galilee, different, powerful, and bold, like they'd never seen him. They wanted to stop it. See, allow no one to talk you out of your calling. Even the attacks from those who are closest to you. Withstand the attacks of religious people. Verse 24. The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master, and the servant as his Lord. If they've called the master of the house Beelzebub, a devil, how much more shall they call them of his household? See, withstand the attacks of the religious people. You know, there's more cowboy wisdom. It says, don't sell your mule to buy a plow. You know, don't trade in one thing. You know, don't get rid of something that you need. Don't give up. Don't give in. You know, I mean, if you read this, we'll hit this more on Wednesday, but, you know, if they call the master a devil, they're going to even call you worse. That's something pretty wild. See, never trade in who you are for someone else's model. Don't sell yourself short. Reveal your power to alleviate your fear. Verse 26. Fear them not, therefore, for there's nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. What I tell you in darkness, in secret, around the campfire, that ye speak in the light. Get it out there. And what ye hear in the ear, when I'm whispering to you, that just you hear, that preach ye upon the housetops. Get the word out, folks. Get the word out. Walk with power. Speak about that power. Teach people how to walk with that power. Who else is going to do it? They're so confused about who even Jesus Christ is, which makes them more confused about who they are. They have a multiple-faced Lord. It's hard to understand. You know, timing has a lot to do with the outcome of a rain dance. More cowboy wisdom. Timing has a lot to do with the outcome of a rain dance. You know, I mean, your timing, there's a lot to it. See, you're going to see what very few choose to see. Reveal your power. It's time to reveal your power. We're going to hit that more on Wednesday. Next point, be fearless. Verse 28, and fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Okay, that's pretty blunt right there. Teddy Blue Abbott also said about the life of a cowboy, quote, if a storm come and the cattle started running, you'd hear that low rumbling noise along the ground. Then you jump for your horse and get out there in the lead, trying to head them and get them into a mill. That's a group. Before they started scattering to hell and gone. It was riding at a dead run in the dark with cut banks and prairie dog holes all around you, not knowing if the next jump would land you in a shallow grave. End of quote. See, don't worry about biting off more than you can chew. your mouth is probably bigger than you think. Another quote there. Or we could say, be fearless. Think fearless. Live fearless. You are valuable. Verse 29. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall to the ground without your Father? But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. That's sort of crazy. So God has them all etched somehow, right? Every hair. Oh, that's 42,923 that just fell. God, I mean, that's how intricate God loves you. The hairs of your head are numbered. People number these diamonds with a laser etching at times. They number cars, serial numbers. Your hairs are numbered. Even your hair is important to God. This is what he's telling the 12 before they go out and start doing amazing things. Then it says, fear ye not, therefore. Ye are of more value than many sparrows. I talked about there are not 2 sparrows. So, did I say that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's where we talk about God's supply. And the point of this teaching on Sunday is to show how God has already worked for many years to meet your need today. God's already taken the necessary time to supply and to resupply your every need. You cannot outrun your supply train. You can't move so fast that God can't keep up. God's already taken the necessary time to supply and to resupply, like I said. Like Philippians says, 4:19, but my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. How much is all your need? It's all. It's everything you need. You need money? He's already supplied it. You need help? It's actually already been supplied through Christ Jesus. By his stripes ye were healed. I mean, it's all there. But we need to put in the necessary work to bring in the herd, to bring in the health, to bring in the abundance. Take it home. Take it to Dodge. Or if you want a little fun, Ellsworth. What you need has already been supplied. What you will need has already been supplied. There's no worry. See, God prepared and pre-cared for our nation. After the Civil War, which lasted from 1861 to 1865, the fledgling United States was hurting, hungry, and war-weary. And many soldiers from both sides went back to their homes and farms only to find that everything had changed. They weren't the same. Just like people today, you see them out there with signs, these veterans, homeless veterans. Nothing's the same anymore. They're not the same. Life isn't the same. Society isn't the same. Understanding isn't the same. Well, these guys wandered too. European immigrants were pouring into our country and scoured the land looking for a religious freedom and just for freedom that they never experienced before. They wanted away from the tyranny of Europe, and they wanted a job. Recently freed slaves, where do they go? They don't know anything but that plantation. Now they're wandering around hearing stories about the West. So they wander, and they're looking for a new life and a new start, a free life. God began to set this up 10,000 years before this, the Texas cowboy. And a DNA study from the Oxford University suggests that all domesticated camel originated from about 80 wild aurochs. That's how it's pronounced. Spelled Aurochs, but it's pronounced aurochs. And the animal lived in an area now called Iran about 10,500 years ago. And they were long-horned wild ox, but they're now extinct. The last one died in a forest in Poland in 1627. And this is from the Molecular Biology and Evolution paper from March 4th, 2012. And an offshoot of the auroch was a hardy breed of cattle from the mountains of southwestern Spain. And it was first introduced to the New World by Spanish settlers 400 years before the first Texas cowboy. And over the years, some of these cattle escaped and they bred prolifically in the uninhabited South Texas thorny mesquite groves, where survival of the fittest gave us a super cattle with distinctive horns that could grow to over 7 feet tip to tip. And some were measured 9 feet back in the 1800s. This new breed of cattle adapted, evolved, bred, and eventually numbered into the millions. So it's evolution within species. There was nothing like them in the world. They were disease resistant. They didn't have any trouble birthing. See, they gained a reputation of being fiercer than a bear. They were more cunning than mountain lions and as elusive as wild game. And the Longhorns were expert survivors as well as a much needed natural resource. But nobody tapped into them for 400 years. A few Texans would hunt them like they hunted deer. And that was it. Everybody knew they were there, but they didn't see it. The Longhorn herded north by the Texas cowboy fed a hungry nation and began to break down ethnic barriers. See, most of the cowboys were ex-Confederate soldiers. And out of every 4 cowboys, 2 of them were probably these soldiers who fought for the South. One of them was black, a freed slave, and the other one was probably a Mexican. Nothing like you see on TV where it's all guys who look like John Wayne, with good haircuts, that kind of stuff. I mean, it wasn't like that. 2 white, 1 black, 1 Mexican. That's the ratio. And a couple of Indians thrown in there. And these people, and they weren't measured on skin color. They were measured on who could ride and rope and drink. Be proud of your calling. Verse 32. Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before the Father which is in heaven. Remember how even the devil was talking about how good Job was? Yeah. People say, well, how could the devil talk to God? Well, anybody who talks, God hears because God is everywhere present. Everything the devil thinks, God has to think, unfortunately. It's there. It's everywhere. He knows every play. He knows every plan. He knows it all. God does. And what Jesus Christ is trying to teach these guys, he can show you how to avoid the traps. Whosoever shall deny me before men will I deny before my Father which is in heaven. There's nothing to say. Nothing to say. He's not going to say anything bad about you. You're worthy. Verse 34. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. That's pretty wild. Peace on earth, goodwill toward men. But again, isn't that later on in one of the epistles that he's come to dismantle the works of the enemy? It's the same thing. He knew his job. So what's our job? He said, discomfit the enemy. And we do that by speaking the light, by speaking love, by speaking truth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father. This is figurative. and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. What drives you the craziest as a parent is when your kids just won't listen and they do dumb stuff that hurts them. A man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. That's big talk. Peter had a family. Jesus Christ had a family. In fact, all these guys had families somewhere. Maybe they weren't a parent. You know, but if we keep, he was telling them, you keep what I'm telling you first, and you're going to be a success. The cowboys had to do things a certain way. If they were going to ride, they had a horse for the rain, they had a horse for the sun, they had a horse for running. You know, they had different, a lot of times, some cowboys had 10 horses. They didn't own them, but the Maverick was a kid who watched all the horses. If you had 10 cowboys and each had 10 horses, he's watching 100 horses, this kid. It was a big operation. You know, you're worthy, folks. You're worthy. Now find yourself. One of the final charges he's saying here to these people, find yourself. Discover who you are. And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. A cross isn't a cross like you're thinking. Remember, we studied this in the spring. We'll study it again in the spring. A cross just represents who you are. Remember on the cross, this guy was a thief. This guy was a robber. You know, that's who they were. In one word, this guy's the son of God, the King of Israel. That's who he was. Who are you in one word? That's your cross. Who would people say you are? Take that and utilize it. Teddy Blue knew he was a cowboy. And he didn't let anybody stop him from being a cowboy. Wild Bill Hickok, you know, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, Bat Masterson, all these famous guys. They knew exactly who they were. They were cowboys, or they were the ones who controlled cowboys in town. Find yourself. Verse 38. He that taketh not his cross and falleth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it. If you find the easy way. And he that loses his life for my sake shall find it. In other words, lose your life in service for the sake of Jesus Christ. And that's how you'll find yourself. We find ourselves in service. Selfless service. The connection. He that receiveth you receiveth me. And he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. And he that receiveth a prophet in my name, in the name of a prophet, shall receive a prophet's reward. Now, I got to look that one up. Didn't take the time. And he that receiveth a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. Receive one another. Get rewarded together. When we receive one another, we get rewarded together. When we all bring in the herd together, we all get paid together. The reward, verse 42. And this is the last verse. He's closing out this, what he told the 12, what he told his posse. And whosoever shall give drink to one of these little ones, a cup of water, of cold water, only in the name of a disciple, verily I say unto you, he shall in no wise lose his reward. Something as small as a cup of cold water, you get rewarded for. I mean, every hair of your head Every hair. See, these longhorn cattle were groomed by God, and they carried the ideal characteristics of resistance. And they were tremendous for long drives. Even today, they're strong and they require little help when producing offspring. They could go incredible distances without water. They could find their own food. They could fend for themselves. They could swim rivers. They could survive the desert sun and the winter snow. They still are hardy even in Montana, a Montana winter, or the heat of Texas. The same was true of the American cowboy. Survivor. The same is true of you. Same is true of you. We too were designed by God to handle any obstacle. We just need to remind ourselves that God has all the time in the world to meet our every need, as well as the resources to back it up. See, people may say that times are tough, but we can saddle up and enjoy God's timeless abundance. It's time to head them up and move them out. It's time to round up our abundance. So let's share the power of God's limitless supply, and we will become the people that we truly dream of becoming. God bless.